Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Charlie Chaplin's City Lights in 1931. So yes, here we are with another Chaplin review here, and here is the set that I've been going through, of course, in order roughly, excluding the kind of the gold rush and stuff. I kind of done that in the circus out of order because, I explained that in one of my past reviews, what happened there with the kind of different versions there. But yes, the rest of the films, of course, will be in order in his feature films, and here we are, with City Lights. Now for me, this is a special review of a very truly special film to me, and I've been building this one up, and I've been looking forward to rewatching this, of course, City Lights. I've kind of hinted at, my favourite Chaplin stuff, over my time on the channel, and my favourite silent film and stuff, and yes, City Lights is one of the most acclaimed films of all time. It's in the top 50 on IMDb, and just sound polls and stuff would mostly say this is his best work. Modern times, sometimes the gold rush and stuff. They are kind of rightfully so. Some people think they're better, or the best Chaplins, but kind of critically, I think City Lights is the one that kind of tops the polls the most. And yes, it was 2016 when I first saw this film, and I'd previously just seen, in terms of his feature films, Modern Times, and when I first saw that film, I was blown away, and very strange to watch that actually first, of his feature films really, all the way through, because it is basically his last silent film, and although it's not a true silent film, it is kind of a silent film. And yes, then the next one that I watched was this film, City Lights. Modern Times made it into my top 50, but then this film, when I watched it, and this is a personal review of a truly personal film. I watched City Lights, wasn't in a great place, and stuff, and I've struggled, over the years and stuff with anxiety and depression and stuff, and just particularly, especially around that time, I wasn't in a great place. And then, of course, I watched this film, and I heard so much about this, and just wanted to see another Chaplin because he had wowed me so much with Modern Times, and truly, in a particular way, moved me. Then I watched this film, and wow, something definitely happened there when watching this. It was one of these films, it's kind of, if I select kind of 10 films that are definitely turning points for me, over my film watching life, this is one of them. And actually, you will be seeing another review of a film that is in that top 10 kind of life-changing films very, very soon, over the next week, because of course I am rewatching my favourites, a lot of them this week. This film is in my top 10 of all time. This is for me the greatest silent film, and far and away the greatest Chaplin film, and yes, cinematic perfection, and wow, just such a short film, and it's always sad, I've seen this 3 times now, to see the credits, well, not the credits, but just the film end, and this is a spoiler review, of course, but yes, many people have seen this film, many love it, and I believe Orson Welles actually, it was his favourite film. It was one of Stanley Kubrick's 10 favourite films as well, which is great, and yes, it is in my top 10 favourites, and just something else, I cannot believe how pure this film is, how much it moves me, and the ending to this film is in the top 5 of all time, no question for me, no doubt. Just a couple really that mean a bit more to me than this. For example, being Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, definitely. And yes, this film really, if I was asked, what kind of what film represents romance the greatest, the most, in its most purest form in cinema, this is it, City Lights. And of course, the basic story, obviously, is the tramp once again, although a bit different in this film, definitely so. He's he's going around the city, and of course, he stumbles quite early on across this blind flower woman, and of course, after a couple of minutes, he realizes that she is, of course, blind, and you have one of the most purest moments in cinema when they first meet, and of course, he basically falls in love with her, and kind of, yes, vice versa as well. She falls in love with him, although she never sees him. Of course, they they have different kind of, you could say, adventures together. And at the same time, you've got, of course, this millionaire who's always basically drunk, and the adventures he has with him over the film. And yes, basically, no one in the film kind of sees, that actually truly sees Chaplin, his character, actually respects him and stuff. And of course, the only one who truly, in the film, who truly, cares for him is this blind woman. And then, of course, yeah, because every time that the drunk millionaire is kind of sober, he doesn't remember him, and he casts him out of the house and stuff. And of course, you've got the butler as well, and of course, Harry Myers plays the millionaire, and then of course, yes, the butler is great in the film as well. You've got the kind of this classic setup of comedy, and at the same time, you've got this truly kind of romance that kind of goes on as well. And of course, yeah, the opening is hilarious. I love how kind of Chaplin, kind of uses sound effects as well to kind of, basically say that these people were talking a load of crap, sort of kind of thing. It's a hilarious moment. And then of course, it's kind of like classic sort of normal Chaplin, you could say, kind of like stuff like the Gold Rush, the circus, until he meets the Flower Woman, and then this is when it's City Lights. The film, really, this is far and away the greatest for me. It easily is the most moving film that he made. Just the purest. Every shot for me is perfection. There is no doubt in my mind, and just not just the romance, and that would be enough. But kind of just all these side characters, the millionaire and stuff, and everyone involved. It just so memorable. It's such a warm film. So full of heart. And I say that about loads of films, but this one, it is in my top 10 for a reason. This just moves me beyond most films. The ending is definitely in my top 5, as I say, and just the way it moves me, the way it reaches this spiritual level that is very, very nearly unmatched in anything I've ever seen. This is truly a magnum opus, and it does, although very, very short, extremely short, and it's always sad when a film I love this much is so short, because you just you want to see more and stuff. But yes, despite that, it does have kind of an epic feel as well. Kind of a little bit of time passes in the film, and just there's something about this film. Maybe I can't describe it, but it does feel epic. And I think the score to this film. This is the first one, pretty much, that was originally scored by Chaplin. And then on he would basically do all of them. He would go back to his early ones, and stuff like the Gold Rush or the Kid on the kind of re-releases, and he would work on the score. But this is the one that City Lights, where he originally basically composed the music, working with others, of course. But yeah, this is something else. To be involved so much in the editing, and Cherrill does do this, but Chaplin, he was the main actor in the film as well, of course, and then composing the music, directing everything, it's just it's something else. And the acting in this film, this is one of the 5 greatest performances of all time, in my opinion, by Chaplin. Of course, Virginia Cherrill as well. She is absolutely wonderful in this film, and it would not be, of course, basically the acting throughout the film is flawless. This is something else. The final scene of the film, wow, this is a contender for the greatest acted scene in cinema. Kind of up there. I think it could be even better than the Deer Hunter kind of Russian roulette kind of scene there. That's how good it is. The Godfather films, scenes in them, and stuff, and yeah, it's right up there with the very, very best. It's a contender, as I say, and really it's a contender for the greatest final scene in the history of cinema. Just full stop. This is just something else. It's not overacted, it's not underacted. You get so much emotion from this. Chaplin gave his finest performance, in my opinion, in this film. It's just really everything in this film is leagues above. Personally, for me, obviously, I understand if other people say otherwise. But everything, in this film is above his other films. It's just, and it's not as, he's not saying as much politically and all this kind of stuff, but doesn't need to. This is something that, in terms of human emotions, relationships, comedy as well. This is his greatest. I think this is his funniest film. Although Modern Times and The Great Dictator as well, and of course, there's so many of his films are just obviously some of the very, very funniest. But this is my favourite comedy film, you know, and I think it is the funniest film I've seen at times. Certainly, the boxing match, just hilarious, of course. This is genius. You know, this is not just you know, his greatest romance. This is his greatest comedy, in my opinion. And you know, in terms of the way it plays out, you know, it's not it's heavily focused on, you know, in slapstick terms. You know, something like the Gold Rush, and it's not as kind of wowing sets and everything, but kind of just the way that the comedy you know, is executed in this film is the funniest in my opinion. The scene, of course, at the party when he accidentally, you know, the kind of bald guy's head. He thinks it's, you know, his bowl and stuff. Moments like this, you know, it's just absolutely hilarious. And then, of course, you've got the combination, you know, of the pathos, the romance, and just the true. You know, this is a fantasy film, but it's so powerful. He blends fantasy with reality absolutely flawlessly in this film, in my opinion. And just I really don't think I've actually seen a romance in this way that has moved me and that I cared about as much as this. You know, and of course it's so beautiful, this film. You know, the way this is shot, the kind of the trance-like and dreamlike editing to the film, all the very slow dissolves, the fades. You know, the kind of just the way that he shoots this film, the lighting, all of this adds up to such a dreamlike film. You know, and of course, as the film ends, you know, and the city lights fade, you know, there's something truly magical about this. You know, the way the film is shot, it's absolutely flawless. And just as well, the way he films the kind of action scenes as well, the comedy, kind of slapstick, and you know, kind of the chase scenes. You know, you have quite an epic kind of chase scene. Well, when they drive the car late at night as well, and just so many moments. The kind of the way the comedy plays out, and the way that he gets into these situations. You know, and of course, the bit with the he swallows the whistle. You know, that is genius stuff. It's something to behold. The way it's so layered, and you know, kind of it leads on to so many different things. In that scene, you've got the him disturbing them singing. You've got he goes outside. You know, a taxi thinks he's calling on a taxi, and then of course he tracks the dogs, and then they go back into the park. You know, there's so many things that he masters in this film. He sustains the comedy, and it never gets to a point where I am not moved by this. You know, just straight afterwards, you know, with something involving something else, and just wow, you know, that ending, you know, all the way leading up to the ending, which is the finest moment in the film. You know, that sequence. Of course, this was designed, you know, kind of before most parts of the film. Chaplin, of course, had this in his head before most of the film, and then I think he was saying, you know, this could be my greatest scene, and well, it really is for me. This is his greatest film, and the final sequence is definitely his greatest. You know, it's just there's something so pure about this, so powerful. You know, I was moved to tears, you know, at the ending of this, and even from the very first time he sees this flower woman, of course, you know, just it's truly something else. You know, she's given so much emotion to her character as well. You know, her struggles, of course, the way she can't pay for rent and stuff, and of course they get the final notice. You know, quite about halfway through the film. You know, he tries to get a job, and then of course, yeah, to get some money for her, and of course there's this kind of things floating about this operation to cure blindness as well, and of course, you know, these things are set up, and then you think, wow, you know, if only, and then of course, it comes true, and you know, it's just something that is truly deeply profound and spiritual. This film is just one of a kind. There's something it's beyond very nearly every single film I've ever seen, and you know, there's a reason this is in my top 10. The acting, everything, you know, this is something else, and you know, I think. Yes, some people will say, you know, their favourite isn't this in modern times, or, you know, Great Dictator. For me, my personal favourite is City Lights, and it's definitely for me his finest work. And yes, just everything, you know, the atmosphere to this film. Once again, there is something very different about the atmosphere to this one, and actually, this one and you know, quite a few of his works after this, they have a very particular, you know, kind of atmosphere about them. There is more of a spiritual level for me, you know, of this, and quite a few of his next ones, we'll get to them of course, but are just a big cut beyond the works he had done before this. This really is something that you know, this film marks a changing point for me in his films. Not with the earlier ones before this, lesser at all. Of course, some of them, some of my favourite films, of course, The Gold Rush especially, and The Kid. These are some of the greatest films ever made, in my opinion. A Woman of Paris, he wasn't even in the film, but that's a different story. It was definitely good though, and impressive. But this film, is something that really changed the way he made films, and just it is his finest film for me. He never reached anything quite close to this, in my opinion. Despite making some of his later works would be some of the greatest works once again. We'll get to them, and basically expect maybe at least another magnum opus that I will be reviewing after this, with a tier S. And this one just truly is his finest work. The way that it's kind of, I got so attached to this romance, and just so many moments in this film, just portraying the longing, for two people to be together. It's something that is captured so wonderfully, in a pure manner. This is one of the most sincere films. All it's concerned with is humanity and just pure human emotions. It just doesn't attempt to do too much politically and stuff. It is his most human film, his most focused film. Just on humanity and just these moments as well. When the flower woman appears, when he's boxing. It's a funny moment at once, but also something that really elevates. It's moments like this that where the romance throughout the film, even when they're not together, these two characters, is felt in a level that is truly profound. And then of course, as I say, when they do come together at the end, and you can finally see, it's just something that is so perfectly realised, and just as I say, the moments throughout the film where you can just feel this connection, and it's truly something so beautiful, and just captured so wonderfully throughout the film. And the whole approach to life in this film, the humanity of it, is something that Chaplin was so unique in this. He was one of the most human filmmakers, actors, individuals, and of all time. This guy truly brought something so human to his films, and this one, it represents that at its highest, and all the emotions in this film are truly just so pure, and the whole film, as I say, the relationships, with Harry Myers' character, the drunken millionaire, of course, when you see he's about to kill himself, of course, at the the docks and stuff, and then of course what happens there, it's something so wonderful, and the outlook of course, of the whole film, is something that really speaks to me, and just this film means so much to me, and of course that romance, as I say, it's it could be the greatest romance in cinema. I don't like to say final things like that, but definitely the purest romance, and well, either this or another film, is my favourite romance film. That kind of is referred to as that. There's another film that has a romance in it, or romances in it that I do prefer, and I do think's better, but kind of, I'm not going to give away spoilers there, but yes, in terms of an actual romance film, this and another film, are the greatest for me. This is the purest. This is just something else, and as a comedy, it's also my favourite. This film, of course, is perfect for me, and it's beyond that. It goes to such heights that I've pretty much never seen in cinema. Of course, it gets 100% plus. Tier S. This is in my top 10 films of all time. This, saved me pretty much, and changed me completely. Kind of just one of them films that really just, after seeing this as well, actually, I kind of responded to, different films in even, kind of different ways, in terms of what I saw, beauty in, and just life in general. This is what the film done. It's something that, I really cannot really do a review to say how much I love this film. Having just watched it again, rewatched it, it's kind of it leaves you speechless a little bit afterwards. I watched it around about half an hour ago. Doing this review, but yes, this is something. If you've not seen it, be prepared. Hopefully for something that will completely move you, and just, yeah, maybe leave the film completely changed in some way. At least I did, absolutely. And of course, I'd love to hear, of course, the comments on this film if you've seen it. And yeah, I have to recommend this to anyone that is human. Of course, I don't see how anyone would hate the film. And it's just, for me, the greatest silent film. The visual storytelling is so pure and precise. And Chaplin, absolute genius. This is his greatest work. More importantly, more importantly than it being, a piece of cinema that is perfectly directed and everything. This is something that just reaches such emotional heights that I connect on every level, emotionally, the level of humanism, the fantastical levels that it reaches, the spiritual level. This is, the greatest silent film, the greatest Chaplin for me, and really, as I say, it's so special to me. This film, I just felt completely changed afterwards. And I've rewatched, of course, the ending, over the years, last few years, and seen it so many times. Just to get these emotions again. I've seen the film 3 times now, and can definitely say that it's one of my 10 favourites. Just as soon as I saw it, of course, I was just moved to tears and could not believe it. That this film, it's just such a cut even above modern times, which I didn't think would be, kind of a film to be topped. And just this is just another level of cinema. I have very rarely, I can't say certainly not more than 10 films that are better than this. It's one of the rare films that beats 2001: A Space Odyssey in terms of quality, and just definitely in the top 10 best and my favourites. It just, in terms of what cinema is and how it can tell things visually, and the score, the way that kind of that's in tune, of course, with the characters and their emotions. It's an extension of what's going on, in terms of this, and just the way that it kind of reaches levels to kind of speak to people emotionally. It just, this is almost on top of all this film. It is cinematic perfection in my eyes, and just an absolute magnum opus. It really, this is a life-changing film for me, and just a film that uplifted me, when I first saw it, and just really helped me, of course, through, not this world isn't that great at times, but this film really made me realise and stuff that this is just, there is so much beauty, and this film really changed me and stuff. And yes, the way, of course, that I do see films at times, more in them now, actually, after seeing the film, because it made me aware of different things. But yes, this film in itself is one of the 10 greatest for me, and definitely one of my 10 favourites. It's very close to that top spot, really, for me, and just especially standalone films. This is pretty much in my top 5. It's that good. I prefer this to the any of the Star Wars films. That is something, and yeah, I think all these films that people mention, like The Godfather Part 2, even 2001: Space Odyssey. I think this is better than these films, which really says something, for me. And yes, one of my very favourite films. Truly something special, and just for me, the greatest Chaplin film. This is perfection in its comedy. In the way that the characters, this journey of these characters, the relationships, this pure romance that in the end, I do think, that they ended up together, of course. Many people think differently, it's not, final, meant to be, but for me, I'm definitely hopeful that they did, that finally, she can see the flower woman, of course, after getting the operation, and, for me, it basically does mean that she sees him for who he truly is, and she's the only one throughout the entire film. And eventually, as the city lights fade, she truly sees it, and they do. Of course, the reaction on Chaplin's face as well. Wow, that is something else. It's just possibly the greatest shot, in terms of just pure emotion ever. And yeah, basically, I'm very hopeful for the ending in the way that what it means. And yes, just in that sense, just one of the most moving and meaningful things I've ever experienced, and one of the things that inspire me, in my filmmaking as well. Thank you, Chaplin. Life changing, and this is his finest work for me, by far. no question. In my opinion, of course. And yes, tell me what you think in the comments. And more Chaplin to come soon. Modern Times next. So certainly not. Kind of short of masterpieces to come. Let's just say. And can't wait for that. That'll probably be next week. Maybe or within 2 weeks certainly. And be steady Chaplin reviews from now on. So yes, thanks for watching my review of Charlie Chaplin's magnum opus, his greatest work in my opinion, City Lights.